Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another week of the GDO Show podcast. This week we're going to be continuing to talk about One Piece. Today we're going to be talking about Alabasta. We talked yesterday about Drum Island and Little Garden, and Whiskey Peak was in there too. So this is the first quotation mark super arc, which becomes the norm following this arc. So I'll probably be only talking about one at a time from now until the end of the series. So this is just like one arc at a time. So I'm gonna switch around the formula that I use to do this, but I'll get into that as we get into the episode. So for now, just sit back and enjoy the GDO show for this week. It's the GDO show. Alright, so last week there was no GDO show because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out. And excuse me, I have to sneeze. Bless me. Last week, on Thursday night, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out, and when Friday came around, I thought about, you know what? Should I take a small little break? Thought the sneeze was going to come back, but it chose to not. Okay. I thought, should I take a break from playing Smash Bros. And do my podcast? And I thought, you know what? I don't think I'm going to. So last week I didn't take a break. I didn't take a break from Smash to do the podcast. So last week there was no episode, but we're back this week with one. So what do I think about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? I think it's really good. Like I've been having a lot of fun with it so far. The online is pretty laggy, I guess. But, I mean, other than that, like, it seems pretty good so far. I didn't play a lot of Smash 4 because I didn't really like it. Like, the one-player modes in Smash 4 were kind of dumb. And, like, I don't know. Smash 4 just feels really nice. Like, a lot of the characters feel kind of like how they did in Brawl a little bit. And I don't know, I've just been having a lot of fun. There's a lot of new characters in the game and a lot of old characters that haven't been in the game for a while. Like, I know Smash 4 had a lot of characters, but Smash Ultimate bringing back every character that has ever been in a Smash Bros. For one game is, like, really good. Like, there's a roster of 70-something characters. There's more for, like, there's more coming with the 5 DLC characters that they have planned, and who knows if there's going to be more after that, because this is just a DLC Pack 1 kind of thing. So, I mean, there could be more characters, and that just kind of excites me. But, I mean, if they're all going to be like Piranha Plant. Joker was announced last week for Smash 4 during the Video Game Awards. So, I mean, anything could happen. Like, Persona 4 is like a PlayStation only game. So suddenly it's on Smash Bros. Does that mean Persona's coming to the Switch kind of thing? Or maybe they were just like, hey, let's put this character in Smash. It'd be cool. So I think it's pretty cool. But literally putting this character in opens up the window for any other character. Like, a lot of people are saying, oh my god, Goku from Dragon Ball FighterZ is going to be in. And he very well could be at this point. Anything could happen. Literally anything. For characters in Smash Ultimate, I've been playing around with Simon Belmont a little bit. I'm not a huge fan at how he moves. I like characters that move around in the air a little bit, so he can't really do that. So far, I've just been like playing my previous mains from like other Smash games. Like, I've put a bunch of work into Zelda, like trying to learn how to do Zelda stuff. And then I've also been playing a lot of Mr. Game & Watch, because I played Game & Watch in Brawl, and he moves very similar to how he did in Brawl in Smash Ultimate, except that he doesn't have he doesn't have like an approaching forward air. It's like just a bomb that drops down. So, I mean that kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's like it's like whatever. I mean, you just gotta play him differently. So that's kind of how that's going for now. Um, I guess I've also been playing a lot of Rosalina and Luma, but not so much of them. I played them in Smash 4, and I don't really like the way that they work, so I just decided, nah, I'm not gonna. I'm interested in trying out a little bit more K. Rool, but he seems kind of to me. So does Ridley. Ridley's kind of as well. And I don't know, just all the characters that I thought would be kind of cool just aren't really for me. So a lot of Game & Watch, a lot of Zelda, and that's about it so far, but I'll play around with a lot of other characters. I have my eye on Isabelle as well, because she's just adorable. But, I mean, I'm still playing around with characters, so I don't know who I'm going to select as a good main, but we'll see as time goes on. And if you guys are interested in playing me in Smash, just send me a message and I'll give you my my Switch code, and then we can smash it up. So, aside from Smash and the Banjo here and there, I've been playing a lot of Ocarina of Time Randomizer as well. I'm actually going to be starting one soon. Me and a couple people had a randomizer planned out for tonight, but I was like, no, I gotta do my podcast. But I'm probably gonna start playing it sometime in the middle, so you guys probably won't hear any sounds from it because I usually have my desktop audio muted. So that'll be something that's going on too. It's just fun. It's refreshing. Like, I know playing through Ocarina of Time over and over is just like kind of but at the same time, it's like, it's just fun, you know. I love it. So that's all really there really is to say about that. Um, yeah, I don't really think I have anything else to say about Ocarina of Time Rando. That's pretty much it. It's just that I'm gonna keep doing it more and more. And if you guys like watching Ocarina of Time Rando, if anyone actually like enjoys watching it that's in here, uh, follow twitch.tv/luxurious lady. It's spelled how it sounds, luxurious lady. She streams tons of rando, like almost every day, so it's good. So, let's get on to the bulk of today's programming. One Piece Alabasta. Alabasta is a gigantic arc, and it's the first one that's really big. It's probably 3 times bigger, or maybe 2 or 3 times bigger than any other arc that's happened in One Piece. And it's a much bigger adventure. Excuse me, I'm trying not to chew directly into my microphone here, but I forgot to finish eating before I started the show, and I'm really hungry. I'm eating some poke. So, Alabasta has a lot of characters in it, and I'm going to be switching up the format of the show with this episode because I feel like the way I've been talking about One Piece in the past has led to a messy description down the line. So, I'm gonna change it around a little bit. So first off, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the arc itself and the build up to it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start off by talking about the arcs in terms of the characters. So I'm gonna talk about all the main characters in the arc. And then after I talk about the main characters, I'll talk about the flow of the arc. So that way I won't have to like explain characters in the middle of talking about the story of the arc. So first off, Alabasta is the desert homeworld of Vivi, who's been traveling with the Straw Hat Pirates. She's the princess of the country, and basically her father, the king, is trying to hold off this big civil war that's about to happen because of forces at work. Baroque Works is trying to overthrow the country, and Vivi wants to stop it and defeat the head of their organization, Crocodile. And all of this is going to be happening in Alabasta. So when we originally met Vivi, she was working undercover in Alabasta as one of the numbered agents, which are like the number. They're basically like the head of the organization. And they're numbered from I think 10 to 1 in terms of their strength. Or maybe there's more than 10. I really can't remember. There's only a few really important ones. So we're going to get to meet the rest of the numbered agents and a couple of the previous ones. So Mr. 5 and his partner has already been defeated. Mr. 3 and his partner has already been defeated. And then Mr. 7, I think it was Mr. 7, was partnered with Vivi. So, I mean, he's kind of done too. And so is Mr. 8, who is Igaram, who is deceased. So, the first main character that you meet in Alabasta is Crocodile. Now, Crocodile is known to the public just as Crocodile because people know that he's one of the warlord pirates. But basically, Crocodile is a hero to the people in Alabasta because Crocodile goes around and he defeats murderous gangs of pirates. The first scene that you see him in, there's a pirate invading the city, and Crocodile just like wipes them out with a big horde of sand. So Crocodile has a devil fruit power that's a Logia fruit, and he can turn his body into sand, and he can manipulate sand and everything. So the sand in Alabasta, because it's a desert, obviously gives him a really strong base of operation, I guess. So it just leads up to it. So Crocodile is the head of Baroque Works, the organization, but he is seen by the people of Alabasta as a hero to them. So he is he's basically like he's basically in the perfect spot, I guess you could say. Like he's the perfect head of an evil organization. Just like to the public, he's strong, and to those underground, like Vivi is the only person who knows who he is. Like, I mean, of course the organization knows who he is too, but I mean, well, I guess they don't because nobody has ever met Crocodile. The only person who knows who Crocodile is are Vivi and Miss All Sunday, his partner. So anyway, so Crocodile is the number 1 character in the arc, and then you have the rest of the numbered agents. So Mr. 1, or Daz Bones, is a devil fruit user who has the ability to turn his body into steel. It's a paramecia devil fruit, so he can just turn his body into steel, basically. Like, his body is made of steel, and so he can make like these steel projections come from his body and spin them around as like a metal grinder, kind of, and that's what he does in his fight in Alubarna versus Zoro. So, I mean, he's the second in command of Baroque Works, basically, behind Miss All Sunday, I suppose. And then his partner, Miss Doublefinger, she is a very scantily clad, dressed woman who has the ability to make needles come from her body. So, like, she can make all these little spikes and spines and needles just, like, poke out from her skin. And and it's an interesting ability, basically. Mr. 2 doesn't have a partner. Mr. 2 is a transvestite ballerina who uses ballerina kempo, so it's basically his way of fighting is just like a ballerina style. Or I can't remember what he calls it. I think he calls it Okama kempo, which Okama is basically like transvestite, like translated into. So he's basically just like a transvestite who fights, but he is also a devil fruit user. He has the ability to, I believe, if he touches your face with his right hand, he can touch his own face with his left hand and become a complete copy of whoever it is that he touched. So it's the clone fruit. So if he touches, like he does this the first time he meets the Straw Hats, he touches all their faces with his hand, and then he just becomes like a copy of them. He has their exact voice, he has their exact body, and that's just the way it is. So, very, very dangerous devil fruit. So, Mr. 3 does make an appearance in Alabasta, but we already met him in Little Garden. Mr. 3 has the ability to like create wax from his body. Mr. 4 is a large, fat, slow-talking, very strong person. Mr. 4 doesn't have a devil fruit power, but he does have a gigantic bat that he uses to shoot these baseballs that explode at people. So, Mr. 4 is just an incredibly strong person. Like he's big and he's dumb and he talks like this kind of thing, but incredibly strong. His partner, Miss Merry Christmas, who in the dub was renamed to Miss Groundhog Day because cartoons can't reference any sort of holidays or anything like that, or any Christian holidays. So Miss Merry Christmas was renamed to Miss Groundhog Day, and she is this old crotchety woman who's quite large as well. But she has the devil fruit ability to transform into a mole. So she is a zone fruit user. And she's partnered with Mr. 4. So basically she can make all sorts of holes underground to kind of dig in and out of. And yeah, she basically mole. She's a mole. Mr. 4 also has a gun that's on his back, and he has a very, very large gun, and this gun has a devil fruit ability to turn into a dog. He has a dog model, I don't remember what model it is, but because there's 2 devil fruit powers in this arc that are dog. So the gun absorbs the ability of a devil fruit and can turn into a dog. So this gun shoots baseballs, which Mr. 4 then hits. So the combination, like Mr. 1 and Miss Doublefinger kind of work alone, like they kind of split the job, but Mr. 4 and Miss Groundhog Day or Miss Merry Christmas definitely work together. So like she makes all these holes, and then Mr. 4's dog gun spits all these baseballs into the holes, which will blow up eventually. And then Mr. 4 chills in the holes and waits for a baseball to be shot his way, pops out of a hole, and then kind of snipes his opponents with them. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting duo. And they have a pretty interesting fight that happens in Alabasta as well. All these fights happen at the end in Alabasta. The next 2 are very, very minor characters. I believe they're Mr. 6 and Miss Father's Day. They're only in 1 episode in Alabasta, so they're not main players at all, but they have the task to detonate a large bomb that I will be talking about later. And so that's just how it works. The last combination of characters is Miss All Sunday, and of course I talked about Mr. Zero, who's Crocodile. Miss All Sunday is she's got a very interesting devil fruit power. I don't believe we ever saw it in Whiskey Peak, but you definitely see it in Alabasta. Miss All Sunday has the ability to she has like the flower fruit power or whatever, but basically what her devil fruit allows her to do is she can blossom body parts of her from surfaces. So basically, she can, like, the main use for it is to make arms like sprout out of someone's body and like just basically choke them or like hold them down or something like that, or like, basically incapacitate them. And she also uses the ability once, I believe, to put an eye somewhere so that she could spy somewhere. So basically, her fruit power is it's very interesting, but at the same time, it's like. So those are the main villains of the arc. Now we have the other characters. So Nefeltari Cobra, who is Vivi's father, is the king of Alabasta. He's one of the main characters who just wants to be it. He just wants to solve his country's problem, and he legitimately cares for his country, but I mean, he can only do so much, right? These characters don't make much of an appearance in the arc until later on. Pell and Chaka. Pell and Chakas are the Kingsguard, basically. They're like the two bodyguards in protection of Cobra and Vivi, as well as Igaram was one of the two as well, or one of them as well. But Pell and Chaka, both of them are Devil Fruit users. They're both Zone Fruit users. Pell has the ability to transform into a falcon, and Chaka has the ability to turn into a dog. He has the dog fruit model Dashund. So basically, Pell and Chaka are like the Egyptian like symbols of the Anubis and the falcon, basically. So there's falcon and Anubis statues all over the Alabasta Palace as well. So they're basically like the strong Kingsguard. So you do see them a little bit later on, but they don't provide so much of a what's the word, of a main character point in the story. They're just kind of there, but they do do other things. The next main character I'll talk about in the arc, who does make a big appearance in a lot of places, is Koza. Koza is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. So basically, there's 4 factions at work, and I'll be talking about this in the next section. But basically, there's the Revolutionary Army, which is led by Koza. There's Baroque Works, which is led by Crocodile. There's the Royal Army, which is led by Cobra and Chaka. And then there's the Straw Hats Pirates, so led by Luffy. So those are all the main kind of factions that happen in this arc. And Koza, being the leader of the Revolutionary Army, who wants to overthrow the king because of all the bad stuff that's been happening with the country because of Baroque Works interfering. Yeah. And then the last 2 characters are characters we've seen. Well, one of them we've seen before is Smoker. Smoker appears in Alabasta again, and he provides a very prominent role in Alabasta. And then there's Ace. Ace is Luffy's brother, and he was mentioned briefly at the very end of Drum Island. He said that he'd been waiting for Luffy in Alabasta, and so he was. And so we'll get to see Ace, and his devil fruit power is the Mera fruit, I believe, which it's a Logia fruit, which basically lets him turn his body into flames. So he is a very, very strong person in the One Piece universe. So we'll be seeing him later. And by later, I mean we'll be seeing him like right away. So that's pretty much the character breakdown. There's not a whole lot of other characters that make big appearances. There are, of course, characters that appear here and there, but none that are like super important to the story. So I guess I'll kind of talk about the flow and how I feel. So the beginning of Alabasta up until they land at Rain Base is kind of boring. Like, if you're following the anime for Alabasta, there is a lot of filler after they leave Yuba, and it's just so boring to sit through. Like, reading the manga through those early parts is definitely the way to go. But after they leave Rain Base, it starts to get a little more exciting because then they start get to like basically how it goes. So the crew arrives at a port town called Nanohana in Alabasta, and basically Luffy is hungry as shit. So Luffy, I actually don't know if this scene is filler or not, but Luffy goes off to find food and water, and he runs into this guy who has lots of water on him, but he has acquired it through illegal means by use of something called dance powder. And this is something that is a main point in the arc. Um, basically, basically, dance powder is this powder that you evaporate into the atmosphere, and it makes it rain on wherever it is. And Alabasta is in the middle of a drought right now because of extensive use of this dance powder. Plus, also Crocodile has been at work here a little bit. So basically, so you just learn about dance powder in this one section, and that it's illegal to use in Alabasta because it makes it rain down on a spot, but because it makes it rain on a spot, it makes it not rain everywhere around it. And so if you make it rain on a city, then it won't rain in the rest of the country, kind of thing. And that's exactly why dance powder has been illegalized or criminalized in the country. So anyway, Luffy goes running into town, and as an aside, Ace is seen passed out in a plate of food, and everyone thinks he's dead because there's this like plant in the desert that makes you die. But it turns out that Ace just fell asleep in the middle of his meal because he's kind of narcoleptic that way. So Smoker runs in and sees him and declares him, "You're Ace of the Whitebeard Pirates. You're coming with me." And it looks like Ace and Smoker are about to start getting into a fight. But then Luffy comes pounding in through the door, smacks Smoker and Ace through a couple buildings because he accidentally runs into them like really fast. And it's just a really funny scene. And so Luffy wants food, but everyone's like, you do realize who you sent flying, right? And he's like, I don't care, I just want food. So Luffy runs, and he's being chased by Smoker through the town. And right when Smoker's about to lay the smack down, he runs into Ace. Like, Ace comes to his rescue, and he's just like, "Hey Luffy, long time no see." So Luffy runs away while Ace fights Smoker, and there's a giant pile of smoke and fire coming from the fight because both of them are Logia users. And so Luffy runs away, and then he runs into Ace later, who catches up to him. And basically, he introduces Ace to the crew. Now, I don't actually know how long Ace stays with the crew in the manga, because I haven't read it in a really long time, because Ace is part of all the filler in Alabasta. So he does stay with them a little while, but it's not super exciting. Basically they land over to the side and meet some Kung Fu Dugongs, which are everyone's favorite character. And then they hit a town called Arumalu, which is this deserted town that used to be sprawling with people, but now it's just dead. So So again, Ace just kind of he eventually leaves the crew, and I can't remember what it is, but basically Luffy and Ace catch up. They do all this stuff, and then Ace gives Luffy this piece of paper saying, "This is my Vivre card. This Vivre card will always point you in my direction." So this is the first time we see a Vivre card in the series. And Vivre cards are just like, they're these little pieces of paper that are like imbued with someone's spirit or whatever. But basically they'll always kind of shift in a direction that the other person is in the world. So you can always kind of find your way to them. So, and of course the Vivre cards show a life force as well. So if the person's healthy, the card will be nice and full as a piece of paper should be. But if they're not, then it'll start burning away. And that becomes really significant later on when more Vivre cards also start showing up, as well as aces. So Luffy gets the Vivre card sewed to the inside of his hat by Nami, and then Ace goes on his way. So meanwhile, now this is probably one of my favorite scenes because this is the first time you're introduced to a lot of these characters. So there is a Baroque Works meeting that is to happen at Rain Base. And so all the Baroque Works agents have been instructed to meet together at the Spider Cafe. Now, the Spider Cafe is just like this cafe that's in the middle of the desert. But basically, the person who runs the Spider Cafe is undercover Miss Doublefinger, the partner of Mr. 1. So Mr. 2 and Mr. 1 don't like each other. They get into a big argument and they almost start fighting, but eventually a carriage comes to pick them all up. So in this carriage going to Rain Base is Mr. 1 and his partner Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 2, and then Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4. So that's basically the entire crew. Mr. 3 does hitch a ride on the underside of the cart, so nobody knows that he's there, but he does eventually make an appearance. So they basically talk about like, oh, we're finally gonna get to see the boss, this and that, and then they head off. So before they meet up at Alabasta, the Straw Hat crew goes to Yuba because they're like when they land in Alabasta, they're trying to get to Yuba because that's where the Revolutionary Army sits. So that's just where they're based. And Vivi wants to talk to Koza because they were childhood friends, and she knows that she can stop the army if she talks to Koza. And so that's what she's trying to do for a lot of the first part of the arc. So basically, they go to Yuba and they find a desert just completely destroyed by sand. And Toto, one of the residents of Yuba, who is Koza's father, I believe, is trying to dig out the water in the oasis because he just wants to, he wants to turn it back into an oasis, but the sandstorms keep putting him down. So they spend the night in Yuba, and Luffy goes to talk to this Toto guy, and Toto gives him a little cask full of water that he dug up from the oasis. So this is like the only water that they have. So Luffy has always been like crossing the desert. He's always just like, I need water, I need water. But this water he decides to keep safe because it was a gift. So it's just kind of like, this is the last I'll ever like need of it. So they get to Yuba, and there's nobody there because the Revolutionary Army already left to Nanohana, which is the port. And so they're like, well, whatever, we'll just stay the night here, and then afterwards we'll go to Rain Base. And so night falls, and that night there is a meeting at Rain Base Casino, which is Crocodile's main casino. So there, all of Baroque Works are gathered, and suddenly the chair turns and everyone's like, oh my god, it's Crocodile. So, like, I can't believe that you've been ahead of Baroque Works all this time. So Crocodile and Miss All Sunday are basically like there, and Crocodile has revealed himself for the first time. So Crocodile unveils to them the main plot of what Baroque Works is for. Like, this is the main thing that their organization has been striving to do and why he created it in the first place. Basically, there is a weapon that Crocodile is looking for called Pluton, which is a big super weapon. And I actually think this is all hidden from them. But basically, in order to like gain control of the country, which is what he wants, he gives each person a secret plan, and that they have to carry out. So the plan Mr. 2 is given is he has to he basically has to make everyone think he's the king, so use his ability to become the king and basically stir up a bunch of stuff. Mr. 1 and Miss Doublefinger have to steer a giant ship into Nanohana that's full of weapons to kind of stir the pot a little bit and provide weapons for the armies. And then Mr. 4 and Miss Groundhog Day basically have to just... I'd say Groundhog Day, but I'm going to switch between the two. And Miss Merry Christmas, sorry, they have to kidnap the king and basically hold him away from everyone so nothing happens. And she does that with her digging power. So, rewind a little bit, because I forgot. Before they land in Alabasta, before they land in Nanohana, the crew is fishing for fish because they're so hungry. And they pick up Mr. 2 out of the water because he accidentally fell into the water off of his own ship. So they pick up Mr. 2 and they instantly become friends with him because he's a very outgoing, kind of silly guy, and he's just funny. Like, Mr. 2 is just really funny. So Mr. 2 shows off his ability to them that he can, tap people's hand with his right hand, and then suddenly he can, or his left hand or whatever, and then he can use his other hand to become them. He uses that to show off all these silly faces that he's seen in the past, and Luffy and Usopp and Chopper are all eating this up and clapping and laughing. But among one of the faces that he uses is Vivi's father, the king of Alabasta, and so she knows that is Mr. 2, and she knows it's Mr. 2 because Mr. 2 doesn't have a partner, and she's heard that Mr. 2 is very flamboyant, so she just kind of knows. So the Straw Hat crew, basically, they put these little white bandanas on their arm, so that way, even if someone tries to like pretend that, if Mr. 2 tries to pretend that they're not them, then they can show the armbands just to provide a double disguise, basically. So that's basically how that goes. So Mr. 2 finds his own ship, says, "We're friends now, we're friends," and then he heads off. So Mr. 2 never touches Vivi. And during all this time, when he meets Nami, he gets the faces of everyone except Sanji, basically. Because Sanji is like... he's in the kitchen cooking at the time, so he misses that Mr. 4 was ever there, or Mr. 2 is ever there. And so that's really significant because in Little Garden... Mr. 3 never met Sanji either because he was chilling in the woods at the time. So it's really funny that they just never happened to ever see him. So during the meeting, Mr. 2 shows them all the Straw Hat crew, and Crocodile dismisses Chopper as being one of the crew because he's just their little pet, their reindeer kind of thing. And so he says, these are your secret plans, now go about it. But then, Mr. 3 comes in the door, and Crocodile's just like, because the reason Mr. 2 was out sailing before he went to go visit the Straw Hats is because he received orders to go to Little Garden and dispose of Mr. 3. So, Mr. 2 apologizes for not doing it because he wasn't there. He couldn't find him. And so Mr. 3 stomps in on the meeting and is just like, all right, you guys, like, we're gonna take down those straw hats for like disgracing me. Meanwhile, Crocodile's like, I thought you said you killed them because when Sanji talked to Crocodile on Little Garden, Crocodile thought he was talking to Mr. 3. So he was just like, I thought they were all dead. And he's like, what are you talking about? I never talked to you. And then Crocodile is just like, what? So he's pretty angry. And so basically, long story short, he ends up feeding Mr. 3 to one of his crocodiles. So so he was pretty upset at it, but it's just like it's just the way it goes, right? So anyway, Crocodile gives everyone their mission and says, if you see the Straw Hats, you need to assassinate them because you just have to. Like, they can't stand in the way of our plans. And so they all burn up their instructions, and that's the meeting. So the next morning, things almost start getting into plan. It's not quite time yet. So the Straw Hats leave Yuba. Luffy has his little cask of water, and they walk to Rain Base. And Rain Base is exactly where all this stuff happened. It's where Crocodile's casino is, so Crocodile is there. So they go to Rain Base, and they split up at first because they're like, all right, we just need to, Crocodile or Chopper needs to go. I don't remember if Crocodile or Chopper needed to find a washroom there, so he left off, and Luffy and Usopp were really thirsty, so they walked into a restaurant, and they ran into Smoker and Tashigi sitting at the bar, and they basically spit out their water and start running, and Crocodile is just like, hey, you guys better stop. like we're gonna get you eventually. So Crocodile and Tashigi start racing after Luffy. Actually, I don't know if it's Tashigi. I think it's just Crocodile. Only Crocodile races after them, and it's like they basically run all the way. They run into the casino, and then after they run into the casino, they they fall into a really obvious trap, and Crocodile locks them away inside his little cage. And so they're locked inside the cage, and there's sea stone cuffs on the front of it. So basically everyone's kind of in the cage now. I believe Zoro, Nami, Smoker, and Luffy are all stuck there. And Usopp. I think Usopp's in there too. So they're all just chilling. And meanwhile, Crocodile gets Vivi into the casino as well. I think she gets into the casino. Yeah, she gets in there too, and is just like, all right, well, I gotta break you guys out. It's thinking about all the order of events is kind of like complicated. Basically, they're stuck in prison, and they just need to get out. So Vivi sees Crocodile chuck away the key to the cage into one of the crocodiles and then leaves. And when Crocodile leaves, he hears that stuff's going on outside the casino, so Sanji's been causing trouble in the casino. Now, Crocodile doesn't know that Sanji exists because he's never heard of him. So Crocodile goes out to see what kind of commotion's going on in front of his casino, and he comes across Chopper, who's just like making a mess. And basically basically Sanji like beat up everyone outside the casino and and like told Crocodile on the little snail phones that they use that, everything's okay. So so he goes out there, he sees Chopper and thinks it's Sanji who's talking to him, and then runs away. And it's basically Chopper just uses his devil fruit power to like make it so that the guards can't find him because he can change his shape, right? So while Sanji invades the casino, he goes and finds the crew in the prison cage, and he's like, "All right, well, we need to find out what the right key is." So Sanji finds the right banana gator, kicks the key out of him, but he also kicks a little wax ball that's holding Mr. 3. So Mr. 3 finds the key that unlocks the cage, and he's just like, "I'm gonna throw this away." So he throws it away, and Sanji's like, "Well, I'm gonna make you unlock it then." So Sanji unlocks the cage, or gets Mr. 3 to unlock the cage by turning his finger into a wax key, because the key was the wrong key anyway for the door, and Crocodile just tricked them. But we never found that out. Crocodile just said that like when he was talking to Miss All Sunday in the casino. So Crocodile goes back to the room, and he finds the room completely flooded with everyone escaped, and he's just like, "What is going on here?" And he's pissed at this point. So basically they escaped via the underwater passage, and because Smoker got his life saved by the Straw Hats, he tells Luffy that he's not going to chase him anymore, so he lets him get away. So they all get on a big crab, a big like fast-walking crab, to escape Rain Base, and Crocodile tries to kidnap Vivi. Like, he grabs him with his big sand hand, or grabs her with his big sand hand, but Luffy jumps in the way and takes it instead. So Luffy's first fight with Crocodile happens here, and basically this is the first time you see like the extent of Crocodile's powers. So basically Crocodile tells Luffy that he's going to give him 3 minutes to do whatever he wants, and then after that, he's just gonna finish it up because he's got somewhere to be. He's got work to do. So, so Luffy tries his hardest to like do any damage whatever to Crocodile, but Crocodile just keeps turning his body into sand. It's kind of like when he fought with Smoker, and Smoker just like his attacks just all went through him because he just became smoke. So Luffy can't do anything. So Crocodile starts using his attacks to fight Luffy, but he's just dicking around at this point. And then at the end, basically Luffy gets his hand caught in Crocodile's body, and it sucks the moisture out of his arm. So Crocodile basically dries out Luffy's arm. So Luffy like pumps himself full of water with the cask that he got from Toto, and is like, "Alright, I'll have to think about that next time." So at the end of the fight, Luffy has some water spilled on his hands, and he grips Crocodile's wrist really hard. And Crocodile's just like... Crocodile is just like... can actually feel it. Like, he can't turn his body into sand when Luffy's hand is wet, and Luffy notices that. But Crocodile just like spears him with his hook, and is like... "Alright, well, we're done." Also, welcome, Green Mixtape. So, Crocodile throws Luffy into a big sand pit and leaves. It leaves him for dead. He basically, like, he just skewers him through with his hook. And then Luffy is later found by Miss All Sunday, who helps him out, and is just like, "Alright, well, I helped you out. Now bye." So, she leaves, and Luffy's left all confused, like, why? So, Pell finds Luffy and helps him out, and that's all you see of that for now. So the rest of the crew escapes to Alabasta for the rest of the thing, and I forgot to move my splits forward. So now we're outside Alabasta, and this is where everything happens. So while everything was happening in Rain Base, with the crew being stuck in with the crew being stuck in the prison cages, Crocodile's plan finally went and happened. So Nanohana got a gigantic ship full of weapons dumped in it after all this crazy stuff was happening. Mr. 2 pretended to be Cobra. He admitted to using dance powder and dehydrating the rest of the country. It's his fault, but at the same time, like, how am I supposed to live if I don't have water? I'm the king, I'm better than you. And he basically just made everyone hate him. And so, um, basically, Koza comes forward to plead to the king, but he ends up getting shot by the two king's guards, and everyone goes into a frenzy over this. Then a boat comes and wrecks the city, and all of a sudden the Revolutionary Army has all the weapons that they need to basically go forward. Now, this scene is really powerful, kind of, because it kind of shows just how dangerous Mr. 2's power really is, to be able to, like, completely just become another person of importance. And so a little kid finds out that Mr. 2 was pretending to be the king, and he sees him turn back into Mr. 2, and he tries to tell, and Mr. 2 sees him, but they just beat up the kid. So the kid tries to tell Koza that it's not really the king, but he's just like, the king beat up this little child, we need to go raise hell. And so they head off, and the entire revolutionary rushes off. And so the Revolutionary Army is rushing on Alabasta. So Baroque Works knows that that Vivi is going to be coming to Alabasta. And so they're waiting for Vivi to show up. So basically the Straw Hats, all in cloaks, riding spot-billed ducks, and so they all rush on Alabasta, and they're like, which one's Vivi? So they all split up and run and chase after a different one. Meanwhile, Vivi was like hiding behind a rock. So this is when all the fights start. And Vivi is left there waiting for Koza and the Revolutionary Army, because if she can talk to Koza, everything will be better. So Zoro's spot-billed duck is tailed by... Zoro and Nami's spot-billed ducks are tailed by Miss Doublefinger and Mr. 1. Usopp and Chopper's spot-billed ducks are tailed by Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas. And then Sanji's spot-billed duck is tailed by Mr. 2. So the fights kind of start with Usopp and Chopper. So basically, Usopp and Chopper are fighting Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4 at the same time. Like, I can't keep my thoughts straight on the fight, because it's just like, because they're a duo team, and Chopper and Usopp are kind of like, they're kind of a mix and match. So anyway, they Sorry, I'm just responding to a message here. So Chopper and Usopp fight their fight, and Usopp gets really battered up. Like, he gets his face smashed in with a bat, he gets caught in a couple explosions. Like, it's pretty crazy. Mr. 2 fights Sanji, and it's just like it's a really funny fight, because Mr. 2 has never seen Sanji before, and and so he's just kind of there, like, just fighting this guy he doesn't know. And so Mr. 2 is just like, well, what if I turn into your friend? And he turns into Usopp, and he's instantly gets kicked in the face, and he's just like, all right, well, I don't think that I don't think that like, how could you hit your friend? But then Mr. 2 finds out that if he turns into Nami, Sanji can't kick him because Sanji has a policy against hitting women. And so even though he knows that it's Mr. 2, he just can't come to kick that pretty face of Nami. And his body's all the same too. So so like when he turns into Nami, he gets like Nami's boobs and everything. And that was a funny gag that happened on the ship when he just like, see, my body's the same too, and then he flashes them and Nami's like, please don't do that. And he hits him. So Sanji eventually finds a way around his Okama Kenpo and finds out that he can't use his abilities when he's transformed into Nami because the body that he crafted to like perform his martial art can only be performed by him and not someone else's body. So anyway, they have a really exciting fight, and then Nami pieces out and fights Miss Doublefinger and leaves Zoro for Mr. 1. Now, the thing that's funny about Nami's fight is that she uses a weapon called the Climatact, because before this she uses a bow staff, but Usopp created a new weapon for her called a Climatact, which is basically a bow staff, but it's got a lot of tricks in it. So she's basically reading through the instruction manual for this new staff while fighting, and she thinks the weapon is going to be like really useful for like fighting, but it's actually just full of a bunch of like party tricks, and she doesn't know that. So she keeps trying to do all these things, but it just like makes all these like weird things happen, and basically Nami takes a lot of needles to the foot and to the hand. So she eventually defeats Miss Doublefinger with the Climatact, and it's just really funny, like, the way the fight goes. The serious fight of the arc now is Zoro versus Mr. 1, and Zoro versus Mr. 1 is a really interesting fight because up until this point in Alabasta, Zoro has said that he's never been able to cut steel or anything like that because his sword skills aren't strong enough. So in order to ascend his current level, he needs to in order to defeat his opponent, he needs to be able to learn how to cut steel. So I don't know if this fight is the first time you see Zoro using Haki or anything like that in a very subtle way, but basically Zoro gets thoroughly cut up. Like, in every fight Zoro's in, he bleeds more blood than like 3 human bodies could like ever hold. And this is absolutely no exception. So basically, Zoro learns how to cut steel, and he uses a one-sword style sheathing technique to defeat Mr. 1, which he uses a couple times, but it's just like that one attack that he uses when he tries to cut steel later on in the series as well, when he does his fight in Enies Lobby. So basically, Zoro defeats Mr. 1, and all of the stuff in Alubarna has happened. So Vivi sees the Revolutionary Army coming, led by Koza, and she tries to see him and tries to shout him out, but the whole army just doesn't see her standing there. They don't care that she's there. So they all run by, and they storm into Alubarna, and the battle begins. So there's a large section here that's kind of always blurry to me when I think of Alabasta, and the stuff that happens in Alubarna is really interesting. So basically, Uh, Basically, Koza goes to the palace, and he gets stopped by Miss All Sunday, who's like trying to keep everyone out because Crocodile's sitting there, and Cobra is kind of being held hostage at the palace. So, um, Crocodile reveals to the king what his plans are, and he's trying to make everyone fight in the main plaza in front of the castle, drop a bomb on them, and then he wants to find the location of a secret ancient weapon called Pluton, which is said to be in Alabasta. And and Cobra doesn't know what he's talking about. So basically there's a big square in the middle of the city called a poneglyph, which has these ancient writings on it that will reveal the secret location. And Miss All Sunday knows how to read these. So so Koza wants to warn the city about the bomb because he knows about it, but she's stopped by Vivi, who's like, hey, if we tell everyone about this, it'll create a panic. So Koza gets shot down by someone in the Royal Army who's a Baroque Works double agent, and basically everyone's like, they shot Koza, we need to start fighting. So the Royal Army starts fighting with the Baroque Work Billions, who are part of the Revolutionary Army, and it's just like it's basically Revolutionary Army versus the Royal Soldier, like all out battle royale at this point. Like it's just like there's Baroque work agents on both the side of the Royal Army and of the side of the Revolutionary Army, so there won't be like anyone who's like gonna fully stop. Like if any stop fire happens or ceasefire, like someone from one side is gonna just plummet the other into fighting. So Koza gets shot, and Vivi sees like the entire town go into fighting. So Crocodile's just like, well, sorry your plan didn't work, and he goes to throw her off the palace wall, but then Luffy comes flying in on Pell's back, saves Vivi from falling to her death, and punches Crocodile in the face. So Luffy, after his fight with Crocodile, learned that when he gets wet, he can't turn into sand. So Luffy has this big barrel with a hose on it on his back that he uses to like water up his fists and basically make it so Crocodile can't turn into sand if Luffy punches him with his watered down hands. So it's a really interesting way that like Luffy figures out how Crocodile's devil fruit works, like right as he was about to die in the previous fight. But basically Luffy has the idea that if Crocodile gets covered in water, he can't turn into sand, and so instead of watering down his fists, he plans on watering down Crocodile. So a lot of the fight is spent trying to get him covered in water, and eventually he does. And Luffy hits him with a giant attack. Now, the thing about Crocodile is that Crocodile knows how to use his devil fruit power. Crocodile is the first person in the series who uses his power in really abstract ways that like other people don't. Like Crocodile said himself that it's not about like pirates on the sea are just like these devil fruit users who are just playing with their abilities. They don't really know how to use them. And I mean, he's talking about Luffy specifically as well, because Luffy is just like he stretches, he punches things, and that's basically it. But Crocodile, not only does he have control of the sand, but he can also suck moisture too. So Crocodile takes his hand and he puts it on the ground, and he basically turns the entire palace into this giant wasteland, trying to suck the life and water, moisture out of literally everything, turning it into just sand. And Luffy's sandals get disintegrated by the ability, and basically Luffy survives, but just barely. So he tries to spit water at Crocodile one more time, but he dodges it, and Crocodile basically grabs him by the neck and just completely sucks him dry. So During the fight, Miss All Sunday leaves with Cobra to go to the royal family's tomb because that's where the secret is said to be held. And so they head out, and meanwhile there's a ton of fighting going on. Luffy's left for dead, and Crocodile's just like, alright, time to go catch up with Miss All Sunday and the king so he can figure out where Pluton is. So they leave, and he leaves, and the water that Luffy shot at Crocodile at the end of the fight wasn't actually meant to hit him, but it was meant to go up into the air so that it could fall on him when he lost the fight in a sec. So Luffy's water pellets get reabsorbed into his system. He gets rehydrated, and now he's just like, all right, now I need to go chase after them. So while Luffy chases around Crocodile, basically the Straw Hats are trying to find this bomb that's going off. And Vivi realizes that the bomb is probably going to be going off in the clock tower, so they need to get up there. So while they're trying to find all this stuff out, Miss All Sunday and Cobra arrive at the tomb, and there's Tashigi and a bunch of the Marines guarding it. And basically, Tashigi outs Miss All Sunday as this pirate who is named Nico Robin, who has a bounty on her head of 79 million berries at the age of 8 years old, because she was said to be someone who sunk 6 Marine warships at the time. So she's very dangerous. So Nico Robin gets angry that she recognizes her and basically takes down all the Marines and threatens to kill Tashigi with her own sword, using her arm ability to kind of point the sword at her neck. So she lets Tashigi live. Tashigi kind of breaks down crying because she is not strong enough to solve the problem. And she decides to tell the Marines that instead of chasing Miss All Sunday, they need to help stop the fight. So they need to quell the fighting that's going on in the civil war that's happening here. The big battle. So they all go off to do that. Meanwhile, Crocodile finds his way to the tomb and finds Nico Robin, I guess I can say her name now, finds Nico Robin and the king and sees that they found the poneglyph. So Crocodile asks Nico Robin to read it, and Nico Robin just starts spouting history about the country. Meanwhile, Crocodile is looking at her being like, wait. I thought this thing was supposed to tell us the location of the secret weapon, and she's like, no, there's nothing but history written here. Like I don't know. I guess they were wrong. So she starts reading more history. Meanwhile, Crocodile gets angry and is just like, I always knew you would betray me. Right to the very end. So Nico Robin makes a little hand spawn behind Crocodile and chucks a vial of water at him so she can stab him, but the vial of water misses him and it splats on the ground, and basically she basically gets hooked by Crocodile. And it's just like, I never trusted you from the beginning because I knew you would one day betray me, kind of thing. So Nico Robin is kind of left to die on the bottom of the tomb, and Cobra is just kind of sitting there being like, well, I guess you lose. So Crocodile is just like, do I lose though? The bomb I don't get my weapon, but the bomb is going to be destroying the entire city up above our heads in a sec, so what more can I say? So Luffy goes down into the tomb and meets with Crocodile, and Crocodile's just like, I can't believe you're still alive. I killed you once, I killed you twice. Why are you still alive? So in the tomb, Luffy is his hands from the previous fight are basically covered in blood. And the thing that I really enjoy about the fight that Luffy had against Crocodile is that because his hands are so covered in blood, he doesn't need the water to fight Crocodile. So it's basically an even fight now. Now, the thing that I really like about this fight in the dub is that because they had to edit out the blood and stuff like that, Basically, they made it just so because the tomb underneath was like so. Because the tomb underneath was so moist from the hot desert and the cold tomb, it made the area very moist, and so Luffy and Crocodile couldn't stop sweating because of it, and that's why Crocodile couldn't turn into sand. And I really like that edit because it makes sense. It's not just a pointless edit. And it also like helps kind of edit out the blood that they didn't want to show either. So I think that's really cool. Anyway, Crocodile takes the hook off his hand and shows a poison hook and is like, "Well, this time you're not gonna die." So he basically poisons Luffy with his hook, and Luffy is down for the count. And while this fight's all happening, they discover the bomb in the clock tower. They manage to cut the wick off the cannon that's going to fire the bomb and defeat Mr. Six and Miss Father's Day, or whatever their numbers are. They're not really that important. And as they realize that the bomb has a timer set to it, so even if they stop the cannon from firing, the bomb was still going to go off. Vivi just starts crying because like there's nothing that can be done. Crocodile wins. Even when they win, he still wins. So Pell appears, and Pell was seen to kind of... He basically lost a fight against Nico Robin earlier, but Pell appeared and was just like, "Hey," and he drags the bomb out of the cannon, and Vivi's just like, "No, you can't do this. You're gonna die." So Pell flies with the bomb as high up as he can go, and it's just too high. Like he just flies way into the air, the bomb explodes, and basically nobody dies. So Crocodile is like, I win, because he thinks the bomb's gone off, but no, it hasn't. So, and Luffy's basically completely passed out on the ground because the poison has kind of made him weaker. But then Luffy gets up. And this is the part of the fight where it just starts getting like really good. And this is just like a non-stop fight scene in the anime. So it's just like, it's really cool to see. And the manga, it's very deep because Luffy says next to nothing during this time because he's just in fight mode. So Luffy breaks the hook off of Crocodile's hand. And he breaks the hook off of Crocodile's hand, and Crocodile replaces it with a sword. So he can basically like stab Luffy now. So they have another big brawl, and they eventually square off at their final attacks. Luffy pulls off this ability using his Devil Fruit ability that like he never used before, which is really cool because it's like Luffy has like this gum balloon that he uses to make his like body like poof out so he can like absorb attacks and bounce stuff back and things. But this time he uses it to launch himself up. Like he basically he takes all the air in him and he basically uses it as like a cannon to rocket himself up. And when he twists his body and does this, he basically starts going up in a big spiral. And normally Luffy's Gum Gatling is like just multiple punches and stuff like this. But now that Luffy's spinning, he kind of does the same thing, except now he's doing it in like a circular spinning motion, and it's just like punches coming everywhere. So Luffy punches Crocodile through the bedrock, separating the tomb from the surface, which is really weird because that's impossible. And basically Crocodile goes flying. Now the armies they stopped fighting when the bomb blew up, but then they started again. But as Crocodile came launching up, basically as like symbolism, when Crocodile was defeated, rain started falling in Alabasta, and all the people started feeling the raindrops on their head, and they were like, "Oh my god, it's raining!" So they all stopped fighting, and then Crocodile just lands in the middle of the fight, just completely like done. He's completely passed out because he's just been punched into being defeated. So Crocodile's dead. well, he's not dead, but he's no more. And rain finally falls in the city, and Vivi's been shouting for the last couple minutes to please stop fighting, and so her voice is completely done. And everybody hears her say, "Everybody stop fighting," the one last time when finally the rain stops. And basically everyone looks up and is like, "Oh my god, Vivi's back. Like, when did she come back to the country?" So Vivi's back, hooray, hooray. And then um, basically everyone stops fighting. So the Marines take Crocodile away, and they just take him away. Um, Smoker and Tashigi comes across the Straw Hat Pirates because after all the fighting, the Straw Hats are pretty done because they've been doing a lot of fighting, and they're basically all just lying about in the street. So Tashigi sees all of them sitting there, and she's like, "Well, should we take them in?" And Smoker's just like, "No, just follow your own justice." So Tashigi doesn't touch them. And later on she goes back and tells Smoker that she didn't arrest them when she could have, and Smoker's like, "Well, I guess that was your decision, so I'll go by that," because he's very loyal to Tashigi, even though she's like the second in command kind of thing. So it's really cool seeing that scene because Smoker is just like, "Well, there was nothing that could have been done then." And this was your choice, this was your justice, I'll respect that kind of thing. So meanwhile, once everyone's all recovered, they have a big party at the palace. Everything's all happy and hunky-dory with that. And then they have to escape. Now, basically, the Marines are covering the coast because, of all the stuff that's been going on in Baroque Works. Plus, they know the Straw Hats are in Alabasta. So because of this, there's like no way to escape because their ship is like, how are we going to escape? So they get a phone call from Mr. 2, who's like, "Hey, we're still friends, right? Like, I know I had to fight you guys, but now that Crocodile is done, I'm good to be friends with you guys." So Mr. 2 makes basically is a distraction, and and he uses his ship as a distraction so that the crew can escape. And it's all sad and stuff because they're like, "We'll never forget you," and meanwhile Mr. 2's ship is trapped and captured by the Marines. So they offer Vivi to take her out to sea, but she's like, "Sorry, I have to make a decision on this, but I think I need to stay as princess of my country." And basically that's exactly what happens. She gives a giant speech on her travels and journeys with the Straw Hat crew, and basically talks about all the fun stuff that they did without kind of revealing that she was with pirates. And then she basically just tells the Straw Hats, like, "Sorry, I can't go with you guys." So they drop off Vivi. This is the last time you see her for a very long time in the series. And she's just kind of left there, I guess. So the crew leaves the island, and the crew leaves Alabasta, and they're sailing on the sea, and all of a sudden Nico Robin comes out of the ship. Now, at the end of the fight versus Crocodile, the tomb was basically collapsing, and Nico Robin told Luffy, like, "Don't take me. Oh, just leave me here to die." And Luffy's like, "Nope." So he takes Cobra in one arm and Nico Robin in the other, and basically drags them out of the tomb. And she's just like, "Why don't you just leave me here? Like I just want to die. Like, just leave me be." And Luffy's like, "Well, that's your problem, isn't it?" So he takes them both out of the tomb and then just kind of walks away. So Nico Robin's on the ship, and all of a sudden they're all in attack mode. They're like, "Ah, Baroque Works agent." But she's like, guys, it's cool. Like, I have nowhere to go, so I decided to come with you guys." And so the episode is basically them warming up to her. She basically sweet talks everyone by doing this other thing. Of course, Sanji has no objections because he's into females. Luffy has no objection because of this and that. Zoro just tells her, like, if you pull anything funny, I won't hesitate to, like, use my swords kind of thing. And she's like, I'll keep that in mind. And basically, she's just the next member of the Straw Hat crew. Like, she just kind of joins right at the end of the series, or right at the end of the arc. Now, the anime is really stupid in this because Nico Robin is part of the third opening to the series, which started at near the middle of Alabasta, which is a gigantic spoiler. Like before they even hit Alubarna, like Alabasta goes from like episode 92 to 130, I think, like that. And the opening that starts with Nico Robin as part of the crew starts around like episode 114. And Nico Robin isn't revealed to be a part of the crew until episode 130. So it's like there's like almost 15 episodes that have that opening, and it's so spoilerish. You're like, why did they even show this? Like, this is just kind of ruins the suspense of it. So the Straw Hats escape. Hina is all around, and Hina is Hina, so that's pretty much it. So anyway, that's it for this week. Next week I'll be talking about Jaya, and I'll be talking about the first half of Skypiea. I might talk about all of Skypiea, I think, but Jaya and Skypiea will be next week, and then after that, who knows. So sorry for the quick extra this week, but got places to go and things to do. So there isn't really much to say about Alabasta other than that. It's pretty cool, but yeah. So that's it for this week. Hope you guys hope to tune in next week. We had a little bit of a short show this week, but next week will be longer because of all the shit that's been going on. So have a good night, and see you next week.